Today is Friday, May 17th, and we're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post. He is none other than Jon Heyman. Jon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. We're going to start off with our top story. We saw yesterday, after the Yankees swept the Minnesota Twins, we heard from Jack Curry at Yes Network, spoke to Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, about Juan Soto and the situation heading into the upcoming offseason, because Juan Soto will be the biggest free agent, right? This upcoming offseason. And Jon, what was interesting is Hal expressed his interest in re-signing Juan Soto and saying he wants to keep him long-term as a Yankee, hopes to re-sign him. And he says, we'd be open to negotiations in season. So what makes this whole situation interesting, Jon, right, is that Juan Soto was asked about this after the game, and he said, my door is always open. We know Scott Boras clients don't typically negotiate in season, especially right before free agency is about to happen. And Juan Soto is going to be one of the biggest names out there to hit free agency.
Yeah.
So, Jon, can you just break down this situation for us and those comments from Juan Soto?
Yeah, well, that was a great introduction. I hate to throw cold water on it. I would expect nothing to come from this. I mean, that was a nice one-day story, but do we really think he's signing in season? We're talking about the guy who's going to get the biggest contract ever. It depends how you look at the Ohtani one, I guess, but if you count it as the real value of it, it generally is around 460 million. Obviously, we know Soto turned down $440 million from the Nats a couple of years ago. He has turned down 7 contracts, 7 to this point. And why has he done that? It is to get to free agency. Now, of course, if he hears that Hal Steinbrenner says he's going to talk to him, what, of course, is he going to say? He's going to say, sure, we'll listen. And I believe him. I'm sure they will listen. If he offers them $1 billion, okay, I get it. But, that's not happening. He's going to be a free agent. I mean, it was a nice story. I'm glad that everybody followed up on it. Yankee for life. What does that mean exactly? What was he going to give him, a 3-year deal? Of course it's a Yankee for life. That just, those are just words. That doesn't mean anything. So, I think the Yankees have a good chance to sign him. He seems to be really enjoying it here. And, but he's not giving up his free agency now with a couple months to go. Not when he's hitting for over 300 and he's probably the MVP of the league at this point. No way. I don't see it.
Not cold water at all, Jon. But I will say, I think what a lot of Yankee fans are taking away from what was said yesterday is that we're seeing an owner acknowledge this guy is different, right? This superstar that you acquired on this team has made such an impact both on and off the field. You can see the stadium is packed every night to see Juan Soto in that lineup to play in that Yankee uniform. And I think you can admit Hal knows those bucks are coming in for this team. He sees the dollar signs in the future. He knows what he can market around a guy like Juan Soto, but also the winning, right? The impact there from the lineup. We're seeing how good the Yankees have played baseball a quarter point of the season, right? His impact is being felt. So the fact that Hal Steinbrenner is coming out and saying, I acknowledge this guy is different. We need to look into investing him. And we know that they're not going to negotiate a deal in season, right? But can you admit, though, that's something that he doesn't normally do, Hal Steinbrenner, admitting that he has a superstar on the team and knows he has to keep this guy?
Well, I think they admitted it with Judge, right? Didn't they make him a big offer with a year to go? I don't think there was any turning back on that. They certainly wanted to keep Judge. I mean, I hope this isn't a surprise to anybody. They gave up 5 players to get him, right? They gave up all their pitching depth, and it turned out fine because obviously all the pitchers are doing great, right? Even Heel and
Yep.
Schmidt at the back end of the rotation. I mean, they've all been great. The trade has worked out great for them. I think it's been fine for San Diego too. They needed to probably move on, but because they knew they weren't going to be able to sign him. The Yankees do have a good chance to sign him. So, I'm not throwing complete cold water on this, but I mean, I think this is just a PR thing at this point. I mean, sure, he'd like to sign him, of course. I mean, I'm sure they wanted to sign him long term when they made the trade, right? You don't give up 5 pitchers, include 5 players, including Michael King, if you don't intend to keep him long term. You're not doing a rental for that, right? So I didn't find anything that new in this. I mean, I'm glad everybody enjoyed it. I'm glad the fans are excited. And as far as the attendance, they draw no matter what's going on with the team, right? Didn't they draw last year? They were really mediocre last year, and
I
they
hear
drew.
you. I hear you. It's just
Yeah.
it's if the vibe is different for whatever you want to say, the vibe is different around this team. You can feel it, you can see it on the field. The performance is there. I think Juan Soto is that X factor that the Yankees have been looking for a while. Aaron Judge
Sure, I
is
don't
that.
disagree with that. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean,
they could definitely use him. He's definitely fantastic. He's probably the MVP of the league right now. I get it. They want him. They want to give him a long-term deal, of course. What are they going to, it's not going to give him a 2-year deal, right? I get it. But to me, this was not really that new. I mean, were you surprised they want to keep
no,
him?
I was surprised Hal Steinbrenner said something because Hal Steinbrenner doesn't do that. Hal Steinbrenner
Yeah,
doesn't
well,
come
they're
out.
starting a podcast and they want to succeed. So, they put the owner on the podcast.
Good
Right?
point.
It's
Good
better
point,
than
John.
putting a backup second baseman, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Listen, I mean, the Yankees are gonna have a lot of money coming off the books next year. We'll dive deep into that when we get closer to the offseason, but it will be an interesting situation if the Yankees are truly, and Hal Steinbrenner is going to be a man of his word and is going to be all in on Juan Soto and bringing him back. Let's pivot to the other New York team, John. Talk about the New York Mets. They finally got a win yesterday after struggling against the Phillies this week. Steve Cohen, he didn't seem to stay off social media. We saw a tweet that was now since deleted, right? And in that tweet, he might have revealed something about this Mets season's team's plans heading into the trade deadline. What do you make of that?
I'm not going to make too much of it. It was pretty cryptic as far as I'm concerned. Now, it was obviously intended for somebody else. He told the Met station SNY that it was intended not to be for everybody. It was for somebody else, just for one person. And I mean, did you really take much out of that? I mean, when he tweets something, and I believe it's very believable what he said, because when he tweets something, it's very clear. I mean, he can write. This was like a cryptic half a sentence, right? And I didn't take anything out of it. What was it exactly? I mean, I don't even remember
So
exactly
what he
what
said was all in the future, not much we can do until the trade deadline.
Okay, that's true. They're not, a Rise was traded, but I don't think there's going to be that many guys traded. I think that, the one team doing something is the Marlins. I think it's unlikely that the Mets make a trade with the Marlins now. I get it. But, I do think I agree that there isn't much they can do to the trade deadline, but I don't know what else to read into that.
I
really
think
don't.
fans are reading into it is that Steve Cohen's revealing, all right, I know my team is not going to make the playoffs. We're probably going to be sellers of the deadline. The future, we're all about the future, right? Like
Why did they? It didn't say they were selling. It said we can't do anything. It sounds like they might be buying to me. Why would you read that as sellers?
I've read that as sellers. That's the way I was reading it. At least I was talking to Mets fans about it. That's how we were reading it. Is that?
Well, that's the difference between the Yankee fans and the Met fans. The Yankee fans took a bit of non-news and got all excited that it was great news, and the Met fans took this non-news and got all excited that it was bad news. So I don't believe that. They're a half game out of the wild card right now. You think Steve Cohen's not going to? He's going to sell if they're a half game out. I mean, and let's not forget I'm here in Miami. I'm going to the game tonight. They're playing the Marlins. They haven't played any of these patsy teams yet, right? They're probably the only team in baseball that hasn't played the Marlins, the White Sox, right? All these A's. They haven't played any of these teams yet, right? They've been playing the Phillies and the Braves, and before that, they're playing decent teams, right? Not the Phillies and Braves. But they're 20-23 now. They're a half game out. I didn't take negative connotation out of that. I think that could have been taken either way.
Right.
I'm not shocked it was taken negatively, but I didn't see that myself, and I don't believe it. I think they're going to go for it if they're close, and right now they are close. Now, could they fall back? They could fall back, but their schedule looks a lot better coming up in July. And I think that they're a better team than they've shown. At least I think they're better than their record. At least I'll say that.
Right. I mean, it's the performances from some of their key players has definitely been alarming.
And they're going to get better, right? We don't expect Lindor to hit 195 or whatever he's hitting, right?
He struggled last year. I mean, he's sort of people have called him
he
compiler
struggled.
before.
He was 30-30 last year, and he didn't hit 195, right? Last year was a solid season for him, right? It was a good season. I mean, I wouldn't say, he was an MVP candidate, but I bet he was a 5-WAR player. Right now, he's hitting 195. He's going to be better. I think Diaz will be better. I'm a little concerned about that. McNeil obviously did this last year too, so I'm not sure, but I would think he'll be better. They've got JD Martinez now on the team. That's certainly an upgrade offensively. I think Vientos will help. I mean, he's certainly going to do better than Wendell, right? I mean, he couldn't do any worse than that.
Was a That
I
was
couldn't
not good.
believe it. I
Not
mean, he
good.
was supposed to be a solid defender. I don't know what happened there, but in any case, they cut bait, they moved on, and which is what they should have done. I'm sure they're disappointed, but right now they're half game out. They've got 3 games with the Marlins, and by the end of this weekend, they'll probably be in playoff position.
Interesting. I mean, I like that
Yeah.
you're looking at it as a positive way. I think a lot of Mets fans have been looking at this as a negative way, the way the season's gone
I
thus
get
far.
it. It's been rough being a Mets. It's not the same, right? If you're a
Right.
Yankee fan, you're expecting something great to happen, right? If you're a Met fan, you're not so sure.
Right. And I think there's just that looming question over like what happens with Pete Alonso. JD Martinez really is like a
Yeah,
1 year deal. Like Jeff McNeil has been horrible to start the season. Does not look like the player
fair.
they gave that contract to. What happens with Starling Marte after this? There's a lot of questions with this team. The starting rotation, Kodai Senga hasn't even pitched yet, right? So like they
Yeah,
still haven't even gotten their ace into their rotation, and they've
right.
dealt with some injuries and some other players have struggled in that rotation. So I think there's it's kind of that uncertainty of what direction this team's going. You say a half game out of the wild card, they're 11 games out of the NL East.
Well, they're
There's
not
a
winning the NL East.
right,
Well,
but there's
that's
a
not a
clear
news
difference between
flash,
the
right?
Phillies and the Braves to them, right?
Right. We knew that going in, though, right? That's not a new thing. I mean, did anyone think they're beating out the Phillies and the Braves this year? I don't think so. This is a transition year, right? But even in a transition year, I think they could make the playoffs. I'm not going to say they will make the playoffs, but I think they got a good shot at it right now, right?
Yeah, no,
We're not even at Memorial Day, so we'll see. And again, Marlins, if they get swept by the Marlins, we'll have to redo the show, and I'll have other comments. But they haven't been playing the Marlins, right? The Phillies have the best record in the league. The Braves are very good. Those are the teams that they've been playing. So, naturally, they didn't do great in those games. They came close, a lot of them, but as Mets luck would have it, they didn't pull them out until last night.
I got you, John. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. Let's talk about the quarter point of the season. We just reached
Yep.
it. Other surprises that you're seeing around the leagues thus far. What are you sensing right now in the quarter point?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some surprises. And, I'm not going to include the Yankees in that. They're certainly better than I predicted. So give them credit. They've been outstanding. Big surprises. The Astros, they're coming on now. They've been playing the A's. The A's are surprised that they've won some games. So
Yep.
they're a pleasant surprise. They're losing lately. The Astros are coming on now, but they've been really bad for most of this. I mean, they had a lot of injuries with the Astros. So I kind of get it with them. AL Central, to me, that's a shock. I mean, to see all those teams, including the Guardians, playing that well, I thought the Twins would be decent, except when they play the Yankees, which is exactly what they are. So not shocked there. I thought Detroit was going to improve. So I get that they're playing a little bit better. But overall, I think the AL Central is much better than I would have thought. NL West, a lot worse. I mean, San Diego, I don't get them. I really don't. They picked up seats. They picked up a rise. They have a lot of good things happening, and they've been not great. They got a below 500 record. It's kind of shocking. Machado and Bogarts really haven't gotten started yet. Arizona, which made it to the World Series last year, they made a lot of good moves, and they're below 500 too. The NL West is a shock to me. The AL Central's a big surprise at the very least. There are a lot of surprises. There's also a lot of great performances. I don't know, did you catch LA De La Cruz last night with
Oh my
4
God.
steals and 4 hits, 4 for 4 and 4 steals?
He's
Incredible.
he's having an incredible season already to start this year. I think someone was saying he could be the first. Was it 30 home? He'll be like Ronald Acuna, 30 home runs, 75 steals, something like that. But like it's crazy the season he's putting together
Right.
again.
Yeah, I mean, he's on pace for 100 steals, right? So, I mean, he could be a 30-100 guy, right?
That's
Last year we
insane.
saw the first 40-70 guy, which is amazing. And doesn't look like Acuna is going to repeat that right now. Not that the Braves need any more help, but yeah, I mean, De La Cruz, what if he breaks the stolen base record? Are they going to have to put an asterisk on it with the bigger bases and the new rules? I don't know, but he's basically stealing at will. I do like some of these new rules, including that stolen base rule. And there are a couple of local players. They're not on base probably as much, and maybe not quite as fast as De La Cruz, but Volpe and Marte, they're basically stealing at will too. So I kind of like the fact that we're seeing more stolen bases. It doesn't seem like that shift rule, which we were all worried about, has done much, if anything at all. But obviously the clock has helped. But I do like the new stolen base rule.
I agree. It gets more action on the bases, which is what fans want to see. John, let's bring this all home. Your most disappointing team of the week. Who was it?
Well, I mentioned the Padres. They were swept by the Rockies. We didn't have any 1-9 teams over the last 10 or anybody that. I'm not counting the A's. I mean, the A's were terrible, but we expect that from the A's. So we're putting them on a curve. They're the worst team this week. But to me, the Padres, you can't be swept by the Rockies. Come on. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is a talented team, and they're underperforming again. Now, last year, they were the all-time underperformers with 82 and 80. I know the Yankees were also 82 and 80, but I mean, come on. They had Soto with all this group with Bogarts and Machado, and Darvish. I mean, so much talent, and they went 82 and 80. And right now they're worse than 82 and 80. I guess it's not a shock that they're worse because they don't have Soto anymore, and Bogarts and Machado are off to bad starts. But this is a talented team. They got a NL Rookie of the Year candidate with Merrill joining them. I mean, they got a lot of good players. I don't know what's in the water there. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, they've been very, very mediocre.
So I
don't know. It was maybe that Padre Met playoff series. Everybody's gone downhill since then.
Well, I think we talked about it last year, John, right? Like there was those rumors and those mumblings about the locker room, right? And if there's not enough leaders in there, questions about a guy like a Machado or Soto or even Bogarts.
Well, I think it's a general question.
It's a general thing, right? Because they got rid of the manager
when
too.
You have a mix of superstars. Now the Yankees are fortunate. They had Cole, Judge, Soto. I mean, those are great clubhouse guys too, in my opinion. So, that helps things. And obviously the Nats did it when they won the World Series in 19, when they had Soto and Scherzer and Strasburg and Rendon. They were able to do it. Sometimes it's better to have some complementary players, some role players, and not depend on big names and superstars.
Right.
That would be the criticism of the Padres, that they play fantasy ball and they get all these stars. I mean, I didn't even mention Tatis.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do in the future with these guys with 10-year deals. Tatis, his was a 14-year deal. You got Bogarts had an 11-year deal.
Well, they give Joe
Machado
Musgrove
got his second 10-year deal. He hasn't performed great either. Now he's another $100 million. That's peanuts for them for what they've spent. But I mean, it is shocking that this mid-market team, and I see people saying small market. San Diego's not small market anymore. Come on, let's go. It's not Kansas City. It's not Cincinnati. It's not Milwaukee. It's a mid-market. Go look it up. And beyond that, they don't have a football team anymore. They don't have basketball. They don't have hockey. This is the team. So, it's a mid-market with an asterisk, but they spent like
drunken sailors.
They spent like crazy last year. And, I give Peter Seidler, a beloved late owner, credit. He wanted to win badly. Now they're doing things differently now. They're not spending the money. They traded for a rise. They got Miami to pay for that somehow. I don't know how. They were able to trade for Cease, but they've been cutting back, obviously. The Soto deal, that cut $30 million out. He got $30 million arbitration. But
they lost Josh Hader. They lost Blake Snell. There was other big name salaries coming off the roster
cuts,
as well.
But they should be better than this, and they should be able to beat the Rockies. So anybody, and the Rockies have now won 7 in a row by some miracle. But anybody who gets swept by the Rockies, they're in jeopardy of a disappointing team of the week. So
all right, John.
If no team goes 0-7 in the week, I got to go with the Padres here.
I hear you, John. Thank you so much for going around the bases, talking about all the top stories in baseball. We appreciate you as always, man.
All right. Good talking to you, Ryan.
Thanks, John.